Good morning and a warm welcome to KBC News Check on this third day of November 2021. Hope you're having a fruitful day. It's of course time to kind of check what has been making headlines in the last couple of hours or in the last one day, and what is bound to be shaping up politics in this 1 hour. That is what we'll be discussing, and there's a lot that has happened. You do remember that yesterday the IEBC did conclude its voter registration exercise, despite a High Court ruling in Eldoret the day before yesterday that actually ruled that IEBC should add at least a week. IEBC had said that, of course, we do not have the funds from Treasury. That is why we do not want to extend that, because we do not have that budget factored in. That is one thing that we're going to be looking at. And the targets themselves, well, about 4.5 million, 6 million, of course, around 1 million people have registered as new voters. We're going to be looking at that as well. And of course, Jubilee, the day before yesterday, did talk about, for lack of a better word, house cleaning the party in the next 1 month. What are some of the things that are bound to be playing out? Of course, anything that is touching on politics, the campaigns themselves are still warming up and picking up pace. That is some of the things that we are going to be discussing in this first hour. And in the second hour, we will be looking at matters gender-based violence and women taking elective posts. There was a conference that was held yesterday at the Kempinski Hotel, and we will be trying to put into perspective some of the things that the women there did agree to. My name is Ben Troy Njue, and Lucy Mwaura will be our sign language interpreter for this show. And talking about that, I have a very formidable tag team here, and I'll start by my immediate left guest. It's not the first time you've been here. Thank you so much for joining us, Diego Ngugi Wilson, who is a political analyst and governance expert. And on my extreme left, we have Fred Amondi, who is Ken, apologies for that. Ken Amondi, who is an advocate of the High Court. Gentlemen, karibuni sana.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perhaps to begin with what transpired at the close of business yesterday, IEBC had projected to at least have from 4.5 million to around 6 million new registered voters, but that target was not even close, because talking about slightly over 1 million. Where did we go wrong, Diego?
Thank you, Ben, and again the entire KBC fraternity. I think the government must be serious on the issues that pertains the Kenyans, because since this exercise is started, registering new voters, I have not seen seriousness from ground, all the way from the rangers, the end of the range, to sub-chief, chief. The entire administration did not put as much pressure as we expected. Then number two, I did not also see a lot of campaigns on media. Yeah, I didn't see a lot of campaigns on media. I mean, you will see more adverts on Corona, quite a number, much more than you would see something in regards to the campaigns on registration. I think this may maybe come down to the issues of finances, financing of IEBC. Then the national government has not taken IEBC seriously on their mandate to govern, manage the elections of this nation, because unless we go right on the on issue of funding and the elections, then we won't have credible elections. We will have skewed voter registration. We will have there will be a lot of chaos, and the issues will arise because IEBC will not be able to conduct good elections when they are not well financed. And this is an unfortunate Ben.
Indeed. And Ken, Diego has raised a very, very good point that has seemed to emanate from the voter registration exercise for the last 1 month. A lot of people are talking about no civic education or not enough civic education and voter education as well. That is the part of the reason that we've had the voter apathy in Kenya.
Yeah, thank you once again for welcoming me, of course, to KBC and for the first time to your show. In respect of the mass registration of voters that ended yesterday, at least from within the context of the IEBC calendar, and to say that two critical issues arise. Of course, the first one is as to whether there was indeed a proper civic education, voter sensitization, insofar as why it is important for one to register as a voter. Of course, the IBC in their part of the story are saying that they've really been seriously underfunded, so that they've really not done that sort of a task to the expected level. And it is serious because, and for those who can recall, the Kriegler report did indicate that matters election preparations ought to be done more or less like 2 years or thereabouts to the election, so that one would have expected that sensitization of the voters ought to have been a continuous, serious process, so that by now it ought to be given that once the mass registration process is open, then any eligible Kenyan, the youth especially, would be trooping to the polling station. So that is one thing that we did not see. Of course, secondly, there is even a more fundamental issue that arises. The fact that polling stations, or rather the IBC officials are there, Kenyans in a way, or rather the target group are aware that this process is going on, but people seem not to be concerned. The question of the apathy, I think that's another one thing that really needed to worry us. Forget about the fact of the political class moving and even sensitization, as it were, but you ought to ask yourself, why is it that Kenyans are not seeing the need to register as voters? Why is it that they do not consider their Article 38 right to vote? I mean, the expression of their sovereign will, the ownership of their country. Why is it that this does not mean so much to Kenyans? Could it be that it is because of the fact that we've had failed elections, given the indictment against the IEBC in the Supreme Court 2017? Could it be that it's because of a failed leadership within our various structures of governance? You start from the national level, the corruption, there are no jobs. Now we even have, you know, the same bad manners exported to our county governments. You know, previously it was good because, you know, it's easy to blame the national government because you don't feel it. But when it comes to the ground, all counties are led by homeboys, and you find your homeboys doing the same bad manners, and you know, people are aware. Could it be that this is one of the things that is causing people to lose hope, the youth to lose hope? So I think these are issues that we really need to interrogate on a serious note.
Indeed, and Council, we are going back to you with this question, but Diego, you can dig in, because I remember the last time you were here, IEBC had talked about the money they were expecting from Treasury, but that money wasn't given the whole, they were not given the whole figure. And I do remember the day before yesterday, the High Court in Eldoret did rule and say that IEBC should extend the voter registration exercise by at least a week. And is it a case of the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing? Because IEBC was very categorical that they were not going to extend the voter registration exercise because of budgetary allocations.
Ben, I think both the answer are right, because the ruling of the courts, they ruled in favor of a normal Kenyan, because majority of the Kenyans have not gone, they've not taken votes, and so I think the ruling was in good faith.
For Kenyans? Yeah, for Kenyans.
Unfortunately, on the other side, the IEBC has no funds. You know, you cannot run an exercise, you cannot do much when you are not funded. So the clerks, the usage of maybe bundles and all that, they are very expensive, and so you cannot just see it away that IEBC has any problem by saying that they are not able to continue registering people. And the last time I was here, I said categorically that lack of financing IEBC is basically affecting the leadership of this country. because the leadership is coming from the elections, and those elections are not well funded, then how do you expect us to have credible elections that will give us the leaders that Kenyans would want? And I want to agree with Wakili here that among the reasons why I think majority of Kenyans are running away from registration is, again, they have no trust on the government, no trust on the agencies of the government. They don't feel like they really do elections themselves. They are not a part of the leadership of this country. They are not considered as a key part of process of electing leaders. And so majority of Kenyans, they are saying, I better go to farm, I better do my daily things, than use my time and go to get a vote, elect people that will come back and still come back and do corrupt things and so much. So I think the ruling of the court is justified that truly Kenyans need some more time to take votes. Number two, we've under very, you see, since Corona came in, we are under very tight schedule across education schedule and all that. There are rains at the moment, and so Kenyans, most of the Kenyans have been running up and down because of the issues of economy. There is no money. If you don't have school fees, you'll have to go somewhere and get the school fees. So there's been so much going on, Ben, that we need more time to register Kenyans. We need more time to sensitize Kenyans on the value of their vote and the reasons why they should have that vote. It is their voice come 2022 August. That vote is the voice that you should come out and say, this is the person that I need. And without it, as much as you are grieved by what leaders are doing, then you are not helping your country. Yeah.
Indeed. The Council, you can dig in that because the High Court ruling itself, as Diego has said, it was in good faith because the laws are very clear that it's supposed to be a continuous voter registration. It's not supposed to have 1 month and then perhaps next year we have another month. The High Court ruling.
Like my fellow panelists have said, the High Court ruling, I do believe, was done in good faith because, of course, remember the right of a citizen to elect leaders of their choice goes in the, it goes to the root of our democracy. So that it would not be proper that a critical mass of Kenyans who are within the bracket that is entitled to vote are disenfranchised. And of course, looking at it from that perspective, I want to believe that's the reason as to why the court felt that it's proper that, that particular time frame is increased. Of course, like you correctly put it, registration of voters ought to be a continuous process. Though we have to remember that mass registration is, there are two fashions of registration. There is continuous, which was expected to proceed and is expected to proceed, even assuming that, the mass registration ended yesterday, as it were. However, there is the question of the constraint on the side of the IEBC because of course, IEBC operates on a budget, and that budget is appropriated by Parliament, so that without funds, then you would not really expect the IEBC to proceed with the exercise, like my fellow panelist has just indicated. Of course, there is also the other question of even assuming that the exercise was to be extended by not even a week, as the court indicated, pending the inter-party hearing of the application, but even assuming it was extended by 1 month, would that address the issue of apathy? Yeah, because as it stands, I mean, Kenyans are not concerned. Most Kenyans...
Yeah, we were expecting actually the queues that
exactly,
we always expect in the final
like ordinarily happens in the last 2-3 days.
Yes.
But now Kenyans are not concerned. I'm talking from a point of information because personally I've been a part and parcel of galvanizing people, or can I say what they call mobilizing in my backyard just for purposes of taking votes. And I tell you, the position is serious. The current economic situation has caused so many Kenyans to, as it were, move out completely of what we would describe as their political right. And in fact, they would expect that for them to go and register as voters, they expect you to mobilize them. You mobilize someone to exercise his or her constitutional right.
Yes.
I think that is what needs to worry us the most. You have got Kenyans who have just, majority of Kenyans who just lost it completely. They don't see the sanctity, the value of what would otherwise be a very important fundamental human right to them as Kenyans. To me, that is what really matters most, and that's the question that we really need to address. And I throw it back direct to the leadership that we have. Yeah, and I tell them that, I mean, this is more or less an indictment upon you.
Indeed. And looking at something that has happened in the last couple of days, our very own Bonnie Musambi did petition IEBC to look at special interest groups like us journalists. I remember each and every year for the last couple of elections, I have been at work. So yeah, you will find that perhaps my vote is here in Nairobi and I'm sent to perhaps Tharaka or even Meru to cover the elections. And IEBC has said it's going to be looking at special interest, which is quite a success if you ask me for journalists. But of course there are other special interest groups. We looked at when we had the mass voter registration. Those people who, the nomads, they talk about, we are not able to register here because we will not be here during the election. What do you think of special interest groups and IEBC? What exactly should IEBC should be looking at, and especially now that we just concluded the exercise, and of course we will be in the ballot in the year 2022, Diego?
Yeah, we really have a number of special interesting groups, including journalists and media, basically media, journalists, and the people who works with them. There are issues because that time is the time that Kenyans want to know what is happening across the country. Same case to doctors. You will find maybe a doctor works away from where he votes, and there is a special case, maybe an emergency. They're supposed to run there and do something. I think Kenya should come into a point of people can elect their leaders wherever they are. Because we are using system. People are putting fingers on the system and all that. Why shouldn't we have the same system work during the voting? That I'm not, if I under maybe a car breakdown from Kisumu to Meru to go and vote in Tharaka, and then I'm sleeping in Nakuru, there is no means to Tharaka, so I won't vote because I'm not able to get to Tharaka, surely. I think we should, because I checked whether I'm still a voter from Nairobi. Here at Huduma Center, you want to check whether your name still exists, and you will find it. So if your name can be found while you're in Kisumu, why shouldn't you vote in Kisumu? I think it's a matter of understanding, having a government that truly understands its people, so that even people who are traveling can vote wherever they are, and they can vote in the area that they want to vote. And the system should show that this person has voted. So you cannot vote in any other station, because again, if you are putting your fingers there and you check the name, this person
has already voted.
Yeah, so you can vote from anywhere, and that's what I would encourage IEBC to invest in a system that it's able to tell us what is happening for anyone across.
Council, you wanted to add on that?
Yes, Ben, on that, of course, we have a numerous special interest group, like we've talked of the journalists. I know the question of students. You're in a university somewhere in Meru, whatever, and you have to register as a voter in somewhere in Kakamega, Kisumu, thereabouts. You know, so it's really tedious. And I want to believe that these are things that would have ordinarily been properly addressed if we had an, the proposed integrated election system. And You know, it is interesting to realize that one of the reasons why our elections are very expensive is because of, and the IBC, I've heard Chebukati saying it, and even so many other experts, you know, the level of mistrust that we have amongst ourselves. Suffice to add that you're talking of a country where it said that, you know, the M-Pesa staff was a creation of a useful Kenyan. And I mean, if you can trust that sort of a system with your money, which is hard earned, why not trust that sort of a system in respect of voting? And more so in a scenario where we are saying so many Kenyans don't even care now about the vote, yeah? So that at times I think we've made the election process and system to look so complex and so difficult. For example, why would someone even need to register again to become a voter and you have an ID? The fact that you have an ID should be enough for you to vote. And again, it's important to realize that the ID system, you know, it would capture what ordinarily is in the biometric the biometric system that is used by the IEBC. So that why all this much hulabaloo? My expectation would be that the proposed Huduma card, of course it's unfortunate, the shenanigans about the process that was followed, so that the courts really gave the sort of orders that they did. But my thought would be that that is one system that ought to be encouraged, so that if you have, for example, the Huduma card, which I want to believe someone would get at birth.
Yes.
And the same would be in a position to reflect if you reached 18 years or otherwise. Then that should be enough for you to vote. And then it should also be possible that you can vote from anywhere, wherever you are in the country, so that we avoid this unnecessary mistrust because of, and you know, it's so much in the presidential election.
Yes.
And you see, if we don't handle some of these things timelessly, then I bet, given the level of apathy that we are seeing now, we will reach a situation where a critical mass of the country, and I'm talking of the youth who constitute 75%, will then end up leaving those systems of government to the political class. And you know the consequences, because, I mean, if we cannot change the system of governance through the vote, and if it means that even if we vote, then we're simply recycling the same and things are not working, then they will look for alternatives. It has happened even in other countries. So, I mean, we are not an island. We live in a global world, and what happens in other countries can also happen in Kenya.
Yes. So
I think we really need to look at this thing of voter apathy insofar as registration and making elections difficult. We really need to reconsider this, not just for now, but also for the sake of the future of our country.
Indeed, and we are hoping that IEBC will get the funding that it wants so that it may conclude the exercise. But were they ambitious, over-ambitious, over 6 million voter, new voters, but we haven't even scratched the surface when it comes to the number?
Even sorry, Ben, even as I talk on whether they were ambitious on the registration and the target they had, we also have a problem with when people want to change votes. That if you vote in Nairobi and you want to change your vote to go where you were born, you must travel all the way to your constituency to be able to change the station of your voting. I think IMDC should come up with another solution, because with the economy that we're having at the moment, asking Kenyans to maybe travel all the way, maybe from coast to Kakamega, just to go there in a constituency office so that they can change your voting station from Mombasa to Kakamega, I think it's not fair at all. It's not fair to any Kenyan. And the people want to participate in the development of their areas. Where you were born, where you grew up, you got educated under the same village, you want to participate to know who is your leader in that area. But it has become so difficult for people to change their votes, because even traveling has been an issue. And of course, you know, even the fares are so high. And so I think IMBC, I am requesting Chebukati and his team to see how a person can change their voting stations from wherever they are in Kenya. It is possible. It is possible, because again, as Wakili has said, these people are using systems We don't have to travel all the way to your constituency office, line up there, maybe spend 2 or 3 days on the same matter because of traveling and all that. IEBC was not overambitious, because if you look at the data from Kenya National Data, Statistical Data and Analysis, you will see that we have people of age to vote who are more than 6 million. From last elections to today, the people that have attained the age of voting, and of course the same data can be checked from the national, where they give the national ID. Their target was within a margin of the people that have achieved the age of voting. But again, they didn't have the mechanism to support the 6 million people to go and take votes. So I think they didn't have how do we achieve that? They had a target, but they didn't have a process of achieving the target, and that's where they went wrong. And I guess, as we've said again, the sensitization was not well done. I think there was an apathy from the voters themselves, and the people who also give ID, they are very slow. Because I came from Tharaka, where I'm a resident and I'm a politician as well, and I can assure you there are quite a number of young people
who didn't get that chance,
who didn't have an ID, and they are 19, 20 years. They don't have an ID. They applied this a month back. But you see, you cannot go and take a vote without an ID. So it's an entire process of government organizing their parastatals and the agencies to see that every Kenyan that has attained the age of 18 has an ID. So that they can take the votes.
Indeed. And of course, IEBC, we're expecting a comprehensive report on how the exercise was in the last 1 month. Of course, the first, the second, the third week, we witnessed a lot of voter apathy. But at the end of the day, we were able to register at least 1 million. But we are expecting an official statement from IEBC. And that takes us to our first break. But we don't go away, because when we come back, we will be looking at the campaign. We are already in a campaign mode, despite the fact that IEBC has not actually announced the opening of campaigns in the country. And also the ruling party or coalition Jubilee Party did talk about holding the National Delegates Conference and doing a lot of housekeeping. What do we expect, and what are the chances that of course it's going to bring a lot of heat and in the ruling coalition, and of course will shape up the politics that we are headed to in the run-up to the 2022 succession politics. Of course, you can dig in this conversation via our social media spaces. We are live on all our social media platforms. Let's take that break. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and just in case you joined us, this is KBC News Check, and on this hour, as I had alluded to earlier, we're looking at the politics of the day, and of course a lot has happened. IEBC just concluding the voter registration exercise yesterday. Of course, we are waiting for the chairman, Wafula Chebukati, to issue a statement on the same. And of course, the political landscape is quite changing each and every day. So we are back in our discussion, and now we are looking at the political parties, and especially Jubilee, the ruling coalition. They talk about we will be holding the National Delegates Conference. Gentlemen, it's more than almost 5 years. The last one I think they held was in the year 2017. They did talk about the cleanup that is expected in the party. There have been a lot of Jubilee party members who have been, for lack of a better word, rocking the boat from within. A lot of MPs allied to Jubilee party have said that they will be seeking re-election, or they will be vying on UDA ticket or UDA, and that is what I want us to be looking at. We have Diego Ngugi Wilson, who is a political analyst and a politician, and we have Ken who is an advocate of the High Court. Perhaps to start with you, Ken, looking at the National Delegates Conference, Jubilee, of course, party, according to the Political Parties Act, we do expect that parties do hold their National Delegates Conference from time to time. Of course, it's not a requirement, but we've seen Jubilee hasn't done that in the last couple of years. We have seen that has, of course, not augured well with some of the members who have pledged their loyalty to other parties, including UDA.
Thank you, Ben. Let me just start by clarifying that in passing the Political Parties Act, the idea behind it was to bring order and to reign in our political parties and to bring a discipline, as it were, because political parties are actually the foundation of democracy. And the understanding there was that we as the people of Kenya would reach that level where we would have certain established and strong political parties. You see, if I could give the example like what happens in the United States of America, where, you know, we always have two pillars. You have the Democrats, and you know what they stand for in terms of liberal democracy, liberal politics. On the other hand, you have the Republicans, and you're always sure of what they stand for in terms of big business, republicanism, as it were, so that we have serious ideological differences, so that when you are voting in an election, it's a vote based on ideology. So that it is that thinking that informed the coming up with the Political Parties Act, so as to guide our political parties. And of course, it's been difficult in terms of how to rein discipline in our political parties. It's commonplace to find, for example, now you have quite a number of members of the Jubilee Party who have openly declared, you know, support for the units, and they campaign openly and are clear that for all intents and purposes, they are not in the Jubilee coalition or Jubilee political party, save for purposes of, you know, protecting their position still 2022. So that then, I think it's so much because of the procedures that are outlined within the Political Parties Act, such that you'd find that even where political parties have attempted to reign upon errant members, you know, such members would always find recourse not just within the Political Parties Act, the tribunal, but even where the tribunal finds as against that particular member, he'll still have recourse to the High Court and all the way to the Supreme Court. And you know the timelines that, you know, handling of cases take in this country. Yes. So that chances are that by the time that particular matter is heard to conclusion, you already have an election in respect of that particular position. So I think
strategic.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the major challenges that we have as a country. Actually, my proposal would be that we have a formula such that perhaps the political parties tribunal becomes the final arbiter insofar as these issues are concerned, and at the very worst, if there ought to be an appeal, then let it be that, you know, maybe the High Court has got, you know, you can have something like a 3-judge bench High Court, but with no provision for appeal against that decision. So that then we can find a situation where, you know, we bring back order to our political party system, and therefore even our democracy, to avoid this scenario where after every 5 years, we find new parties coming in. Now you have UDA, and whatever next election, UDA will have morphed into something else depending on the position of William Ruto.
Butterflies, which metamorphoses.
Exactly.
Metamorphoses. But indeed, and Diego, you can touch on that. But before that, there's some comments in regards to the IEBC discussion that we had some moments ago. Kamwara M. Newton, that's a good clarification on IBC, Diego. Of course, giving you some compliment. Yvonne Kish also grateful that we've been able to at least touch on some of the issues IEBC is looking forward to. And also, Diambo Okoth, you're saying you're following. Cherry Johnson, you're also following. Plus, of course, a number of viewers on our social media platform. Diego, perhaps you can dig in that. We touched the surface when it comes to the Political Parties Act, which clearly states that if you're allied to a certain coalition or a party, and of course you shifted camps, then you should resign or you're kicked out, and a by-election is held. And as Wakili has said, is that our politicians are very strategic. They know very well if somebody petitions that, it will take us almost to what? To 2022. The courts, of course, if they decide to give orders, and the hearing of the case will take quite a long time. Quite a strategy, if you ask me.
Yeah, that's true. I think one, Ben, if someone and gone to elections with a certain party, of course you're in love with that party. You chose to run with that party because there are some things you like about them, or rather maybe the party is popular in your area. I guess the reason why some people get all of a party is because of some other issues. Like what you expected is not happening. So the expectations, when those expectations are cut, and you find that maybe in a way you are getting victimized, or rather you are not enjoying the right as a member, then of course you will opt to get out. It's not a good thing. It won't grow our politics. When we have parties dying of every elections and new parties coming in, we are not growing politically, which is not a good thing for our nation. But again, the parties themselves and the leadership of parties must be fair enough, professional enough, and honest, and treat people with a lot of fairness. Because again, if you mistreat me as a person, I have feelings and I can move on when there is an avenue to move on. And if I don't have somewhere to take my grievances, for example, if I'm grieved and I cannot take my grievances to anyone, the same person that is grieving me is the same person I'm supposed to take my grievances. Then what are the chances of me getting my rights in the same party? That's the reason why we're having parties born in and out. Then I think we need some regulations of parties in this nation. We need some regulations and there's some like strict calendar, even if it's IMBC to come up with a calendar that every party must do an annual general meeting, maybe twice or maybe once a year, and you must do a parliamentary meeting once a year or as in a specified time. So that again, we don't have a dictatorship within parties, where because you are the chairman or you are the vice chairman or you own a position, you can have 5 years without a meeting, without an annual general meeting, without even a parliamentary meeting. The people that are elected, they cannot meet for 5 years. It's very unfair. And at the same time, the party is running, but it's running with your ideologies. Basically, you are a dictator. You are not involving the party members, the people elected through your party, the people that are financing the party. Because every elected member, for example, of a parliament, there are some shares every month from his salary that goes to the party. So those are like sponsors of the party. And if you don't want to involve them in the running and the affairs of the party, how do you expect them then to support you, to be Tunbindayans? They cannot die with you because they have no voice, they have no contribution in terms of the management of the party. The party is being run from a family level, and I'm sorry to say so. And
Fred, of course, Diego has put it quite well that, of course, in every election cycle, it's party in, party out. A few parties have been able to weather the storm, including KANU, the likes of DP, and perhaps NAC Kenya. And looking at what Jubilee is expected to do in the next 1 month, just as announced by the Secretary General, is that they will be doing some housekeeping. And of course, we expect perhaps some of the rebels could be kicked out. What are the chances? Because we know very well that, of course, some of the leaders have already left Jubilee, despite the fact that they are still in Parliament and Senate sponsored by the Jubilee Party. What are the chances of Jubilee in the next election with a cleaner, leaner Jubilee Party?
My thoughts are that, you know, this is something that ought to have been done much earlier by the Jubilee Party, because like I've said, party discipline is really key in terms of the development and the sustenance of our democracy. And suffice to add, and you know that is based on what my fellow panelist has just said now, in terms of a scenario where you are in this, and I want to believe he was talking with the Jubilee Party, where you are in the party and there is a complaint that there are no, the NDC is not being held, no parliamentary group meeting, and such like things. My thoughts are that in such a scenario, what you need to do is, you know, just go pursuant to the Political Parties Act. Just to be bold enough and, I mean, resign. Yeah, so that thereafter there will be a vacancy. Your seat will fall vacant, and, you know, seek a fresh mandate through some other political party to send a statement, a radical statement that, look, we are not into this thing, we cannot buy this any further. So that then, when you get that mandate from the ground, then it sends a message that, look, Kenyans want order. And I mean, if you are to do that, it won't be like it's the first time. We have people who've done that. I'm aware that part of our, the persons that played critical roles in so far as the reforms that we've had in our country so far. I remember Kenneth Matiba. I mean, when he felt, you know, I think there were certain elections, is called what, the voting during the KANU days, and the time were not being done in a proper fashion, and he felt, look, I cannot stomach this any further. What did he do? He resigned and charted a new political path. The rest is history. He's got a place in history. Of course, it's unfortunate in terms of the detention and what have you. We have people like the former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, when he was in Ford, Kenya, and how things were happening. And he said, okay, if that's the case, I am resigning from my position as MP Langata constituency. He founded a different party. He went to the election. He won the election, and I think, to me, that was now the rebirth of the Raila Odinga that we know today. Of course, there was, I think, Raila's father as the deputy, as vice president during those days, and he did a letter to the president and said, okay, I know I'm earning a salary and whatever, but deep in my heart, I'm wondering, how will I explain this to the future generation, that I'm working under these circumstances? I mean, I'd better resign. So to me, that is a politics of principle that we are lacking in our country now. So that I would have felt that rather than wait for the Jubilee Party machinery to crack the whip, if the UDA members were really bold, as they say, and they were really in the ground, the best recourse that would have really done, you know, wonders to our democracy, and also in respect of order to our political party system, would have been to register their disappointment by resigning, subjecting themselves to a vote, and then coming back with a fresh mandate from the people, so that we inject order in our political party setup. Of course, as to the meeting proposed by the Jubilee Party, like I've said, it's too late. It's too late in the day
to salvage anything. And
I know that whatever they will do, there is always also the court actions. There will be some appeals to the political parties.
But do you expect a lot of members will be kicked out as they do the cleaning up, as they say they are going to be doing a lot of housekeeping?
I expect them to do that. I mean, if you read what is happening within the circles of the Jubilee Party now, I think the president is now out and strongly, at least from where he stands, for purposes of safeguarding his legacy. He wants a strong, organized Jubilee Party that will partner with, you know, other coalition partners to probably come up with a formidable force that he believes would best represent the safeguarding of his legacy.
Indeed, we can expand the conversation. And before that, Diego,
yes.
And what are the chances? Of course, Jubilee is expected to. The members have left. Some of the members have left, and they have talked about coalition with parties like ODM. Do they fancy a better chance of picking a lot of seats when it comes to the year 2022? Bearing in mind it is the largest party and the ruling coalition.
Ben, first I want to respond to my colleague here that we learn by experience. And he has quoted about 2 to 3 people. One was Matiba, who was bold enough to critique the government and run away from it. But the question is, what was the end result? Did he achieve that goal? Did Ondinga, the father of Raila, achieve the goal by resigning? Did Raila himself, at the time that he resigned from Kibera, did Kibera get any better? Did they get any better results? Or did he achieve the goal? Currently, as we talk, I want to say that there is a big difference between a vice president and a deputy president. A deputy president is elected. Unlike the vice, you know, those days, the president would just pick, he would sack you at the lunch hour news and all that.
Yes.
But deputy is a constitutional position that has mandate from people, not from a person. And so when people give you mandate, you must fight for that mandate. You don't run away from what you believe in. And I guess this is what is happening. None of the member of Jubilee is in Unda that has resigned from Jubilee. None of them. They have not resigned.
Yes.
And I can assure you, even after the Jubilee, they tried to convene a meeting and try to chase those members away. How will you chase them away? They are still your members.
They can. You can kick them out, or if they fail to resign, they can be kicked out by the party because they don't ascribe to what Jubilee ascribes to.
But how do you say they have not subscribed to what the Jubilee belongs? They are Jubilee themselves.
Yes.
You know, we are trying to take Jubilee as one man's party. That I am Jubilee, if you don't do what I'm saying, then I can punish you according to this what the Jubilee constitution says.
Yes.
But you are Jubilee yourself. You cannot separate the president and the deputy. I mean, they are Jubilee themselves. One is the party leader, the other one is assistant or deputy party leader. They are Jubilee themselves. How do you come and tell my wife she doesn't own a TV in that house, she doesn't have a voice in that house? I mean, this is one house. So the better way to go about this is to call a meeting. Where did we go wrong as a house?
Actually, they went wrong a long time ago.
Where did the rain start beating us?
Yes.
So that now they have a conversation.
Don't you think, like what you said, it's quite late for that?
It is not late because it is the same party that is trying to call people now that they were supposed to call people 4 years ago and ask themselves the same questions that they are supposed to ask themselves when they meet next. But as much as it is late, it is not late to have a discussion. You can still have a conversation that what was the problem? Where did we go wrong? And if the Unda wing was under an issue, then they should apologize, or vice versa. If the Jubilee, rather than the team and the other guys have an issue, then they should come out and say, I guess, guys, we did wrong here. Can we reconcile and move on? But the issue of thumping your chest and saying, this is what must happen, this is what must be done, this is what must... Jubilee, we all voted for them because we believed in their ideologies, and it is not a party for particular people.
Council, do you concur with what Diego is talking about? They should actually, in that National Delegates Conference, should try to see where the rain started beating us. I believe there's a flood in Jubilee, and it has really carried a lot of leaders there. They have openly said that they will be on the ballot, but using a different party. That constitutes to someone being kicked out. And what are the repercussions, if at all? Jubilee Party decides all those members working the boat from within are ejected. What chances do we have? Even before we go to the deputy party leader, who happens to be the deputy president, and he has clearly said that UDA is his ticket in the year 2022 politics.
Okay, just in response to my colleague, let me start by saying that in as much as I gave those three examples, what I had in mind was the members of parliament. Yes, because I am aware that the deputy president was elected,
yes,
and was not appointed, as it were, by the president. Of course, it is never too late for for a political party to call an NDC, because like we said when we started the conversation, I would expect that national delegates conferences are things that in an organized party would be held even yearly, ordinarily, yes, so that such there could be some house building, those issues that are affecting the party would be addressed, so that you cannot really say that it's too late to hold the same as of now. However, on the question of members elected on a Jubilee party ticket, going outwardly and expressing not just dissatisfaction, but as it were, also digressing from the policies of the party that actually elected you to that particular position, to an extent that during by-elections you have the temerity to move out and campaign for a party that is not that and against the party that elected you to office. To me, that's the highest level in so far as, infidelity when it comes to respect to the canons of political parties. Because insofar as you move against the creed of that party that sponsored you to parliament, so that you now even subscribe by way of funding, monthly to opposite political party. And let me take the example of members in Central Province, as it were, who basically we know quite a number, Central and is it Rift Valley? I don't know if it's north or south, I don't know how I would describe it, who for all intents and purposes, as we speak, are fully subscribed to the UDA. I tend to think that there is no better way of stating contempt or demonstrating contempt to the parties.
And they actually should be kicked out from what they've done. Or Jubilee is just waiting for that.
Exactly, so that, that's what I was saying, that when it has reached that sort of a level, then the prudent thing to do for you as a person that was elected on that ticket is to resign, and you seek a fresh mandate from UDA. Of course, for the Jubilee Party, the option that they have is to initiate the process of now, as it were, expelling you, ejecting you from the political party. Yeah, because we must bring order. Of course, it's another thing, and I agree with what he said as to what was the cause. Could it be that there was a problem insofar as the management of the party is concerned? I'm not saying that that sort of a problem was not there. But my position is that once you have realized that that is the position, and you realize that according to you, the party is not bound to change, then the most prudent thing to do is to ship out and seek a fresh mandate, so that then you send a message to that particular party that look, this is not how to do things, and then we'll have
here for the wrong land,
and we'll have it as a case reference even in future, that look, you handle your political party in this particular way, this is the option that the people would then have. And I want to disagree with my colleague that, when he's asking that what did Jaramogi achieve, what did Matiba achieve, those were during those days when, more or less we had, during Jaramogi and Matiba days, it was one party. At Raila's time, it was a nascent time in the development of our democracy. But under the prevalent constitutional dispensation, I thought, from why I said that the best that the members would have done so as to send a clear statement would have been to resign and send and seek
a lot has also
mandate.
changed because of the Political Parties Act.
Exactly.
Indeed. And of course, you can also touch on the campaigns. So far, we can say so good, although the IEBC has not okayed the start of the campaigns, but we are still seeing them. DP right now, as we speak, he was in the Nyanza region. But the good thing is that at least we are seeing something that we never used to see.
Yeah,
so
Ben, I think
they have been largely peaceful.
One thing I want to say is that elections are continuous. Politics are continuous. Every day we're in politics. They carry the day, they carry the hour, the politics, you cannot stop them. There is no time. Basically, the reason why IMBC gives us time for politics is because of the government institutions and the people who want to resign from their positions, government positions, to get into politics. But Ben, I want to tell you and tell the listeners and the viewers that anytime you invest in something, you are part of that thing. When I invest in my family, I buy a plot, I sire children, I do all that. They are part of they are part of what belongs to me. And you cannot just go investing and running away from investment.
Yes.
You cannot have a wife that is running away from children simply because the father has a different direction. You sit on, you push, and you fight. And that's all about politics and democracy. It's about having different ideas, but again, we are moving. You speak your heart and move on. And I guess Kenyans are, as we talk, Ben, Kenyans are much brighter and knowledgeable and wiser than they were a few years ago. You cannot go to streets talking about an ideology, having a political will, and speaking of something that you are also doing. I mean, I cannot stand in the Tharaka constituency where I'm contesting for a parliamentary seat. I cannot just go there and say your MP is a thief when I know I'm a thief. you get the point.
Yes.
You cannot critique what you are. And basically what is happening in the political scene is that we are having, I have heard several people say, and I'm sorry to say, these same monkeys in a different forest. So you will find maybe one monkey trying to blame the other one because of a similar thing, that you have something behind your tail. Yes. And I'm just trying to because in our place we use it. Every monkey has that thing which looks like a wound. So one monkey trying to tell the other one you have a wound, and it has hits. So I think in our political scene we should avoid and these are things that are trying to raise the temperatures in our country, to call names. And you know very well, if you are calling somebody thief, you know very well you are also a thief. If you are saying somebody is a conman, you know very well you are also a conman. And we should avoid those branding of people.
Okay. And as we wind up, Council, the DP himself has talked about the handshake and the BBI actually scuttling the Big Four agenda. You think he is honest in that statement, in your opinion?
Of course, the DP is first and foremost a politician. And we have to look at this thing in the context of the succession battle. I mean, before we reached where we are and things just went out between the ADP and the president, I think the ADP from day one saw the handshake as, a project that would, as it were, scuttle his presidential ambitions. And I always look at it from the perspective that what is it that propagated the president to craft the idea of the handshake, so that from that perspective then you would be in a position to tell if the DP is indeed right that the same ultimately scuttled the Big Four agenda. And we are all aware that after the election 2017, we know the circumstances, how things were not moving, how the country was, as it were, divided. We even had a Supreme Court decision that actually confirmed and indicted they indicted the IEBC. In fact, for record purposes to our viewers, it's important to know that as it stands, remember, there's even an order by the Supreme Court for the opening of the servers that to date has not been complied with. So that I tend to think that it is from within that context that the president felt that, look, we really have to look back and check where did we get it wrong. So that one of the immediate benefits of the handshake from where I stand is that there was peace. There's a sense in which an element of togetherness was brought back to the country, and which is really key even in terms of fulfillment of the Big Four agenda, because where there is peace, where there is chaos, who would think of economic development? Yes. So that to that extent, I disagree with the DP. And secondly, none other than the president has come forward and stated that, ladies and gentlemen, from 2017, my government has achieved a lot in terms of economic development, in terms of the Big Four agenda. And I mean, it's there for all and sundry to see the mega infrastructural projects that so far the government has, even if they are not yet complete, but they are tending towards being complete. So that I would say that for the deputy president, of course, he may have some reasons as to his thinking, but I think it was so much inclined towards the succession, given the fact that he did not trust that so long as the president is working with the former prime minister,
yes,
who did not achieve his ambition in 2017, then one would expect the DP to be very uncomfortable for obvious reasons, given the fact that to him there was the question of kumi yangu, kumi yako. Yes. And so he felt, and rightfully so, that the same would be compromised.
Diego, perhaps you can chip in that. Of course, the Deputy President talking about the handshake and the BBI, or that scuttled the Big Four. That is why we haven't gotten where we are. But as Council is talking about, at least let's look at what exactly the handshake itself brought about.
Ben, I'll tell you, I have no problem with the handshake. If it was meant for good of the Kenyans, I don't think I have any issue with it. But ultimately, we have seen where it was ended. You know, since the time of handshake, we have seen the President publicly and his team. I think they are supporting the former premier. And so you cannot just try to deviate that the handshake was meant for what? It was a political process which happened, and we have seen where it has ended. So we cannot wish it away, but I think maybe the initial idea, maybe it had some good it had some good intention, but ultimately I do not think handshake was meant for good intention. We cannot talk of peace because of an individual. We cannot, because anytime we try to say that without this individual in government we cannot have peace, we will completely kill democracy. And that is the danger in Kenya. We will have leaders that can still left and center and nobody to question them. One of the things that has actually built the name of the former premier, Amolo, is that he was very keen, and he was the fighter of the, so we are calling today, Asura. But since the handshake, that died. It has actually worked against him. Because Raila would point out there is a steering going on in this ministry. There is some embezzlement of funds in this parastatal. We know that. But even after we saw these KEMSA, the issues on KEMSA, we expected the premier to speak. He didn't speak. All the issues raised on corruption of the government, because after the handshake, the government has borrowed the times two, double of what the government has borrowed since independence. All that money, we cannot say where it went. But I assure you, if Raila was not in the government, he would have spoken about any
but
corruption.
He's not in government.
Yes.
We just assume.
Technically, yes.
Technically,
yes. Because of course, when you are guarded by the government soldiers, you are given government facilitations and all that. You are sent for a meeting to represent a government. Then, of course, you cannot critique the same government.
Okay.
And that's the problem, Ben. That we are in an age where we are supposed to have a high level of democracy. But if we can have the presidency that will come in and immediately kill the competition in the name of peace, then I don't know where we should get the balance. We don't know, because we will,
Council, perhaps you can touch on that as we wind up and talk about of course, about the campaigns as you see them. He's talking about, at least since, of course, the handshake, we haven't had a lot when it comes to pointing out of corruption, or we don't have a keen eye oversighting the government. Everything has been quite quiet. Respond to that as we wind up.
I think I have heard the former Prime Minister, as much as I don't hold his fort here, saying that from the time of the handshake, he doesn't have to, as it were, call press conferences to sort out issues. All that he needs to do is basically to call the president and iron out the issues. And I think, for example, one of the latest, cases that I can highlight, you remember when there was the crisis about increment in fuel prices, and there was this hue and cry, left, right, and center. Of course, after whatever happened, within their level, we had the statement from the Prime Minister that the fuel prices would reduce. Then we saw their relevant lieutenants in the relevant governmental committees doing that which they ought to do. And of course, we know the proposals that were ultimately made, which in the end of the day gained fruition. So that then it comes out clear that based on the handshake, it's not really necessary that the former Prime Minister and the ODM will then be expected to be calling press conferences and even, demonstrating as they used to do during those other days.
Yes.
And in any case, I want to state that the UDA members, as they stand now, are still members of parliament, and nor is it written that the role of oversight was restricted to members of the ODM. I mean, even Jubilee members who have openly subscribed to the UDA and who have openly professed that they enjoy majority in parliament ought to be taking over the oversight role with gusto, because in any case, that's the reason as to why they are paid. That is the role of parliament and the legislatures. So that I really do not think that there's a sense in which, because of Raila coalition, being in some sort of a coalition with the president, that the same has therefore tampered with the process of oversight, unless we are admitting that there are only particular parties that are inclined towards doing that, which I want to believe is not honestly the position. Insofar as the question of campaigning is concerned, I have to say it's a really tricky thing for the country, and it's one of the areas where we're really getting it wrong. This is one of the countries where you leave a general election today, and 1 month thereafter, campaigns have started. And that, I think, and it's unfortunate, I have to state it, the deputy president, I think, is one person that has been known to have been in what could be described as a continuous campaign for, now I think would be 10 years or something for the presidency. And it's a sort of bad manners that I think has now crippled down, so that we are in a perpetual campaign mood, something which is very dangerous even in respect of investment. That is true. That is true, because a year, more than a year is wasted in politics. Exactly. If a foreigner was to come to the country, you would be mistaken to think that we have a general election the next tomorrow. 2 months. Indeed. And that would impact negatively insofar as investing in the country is concerned. Yes. You also respond on the campaigns. And on Zere Hemston, you're saying you love the show. Kamwara M. Newton, my epic way of understanding is that we are recycling the same leaders who have poor ideas to transform our nation.
we have everything in Kenya, but implementing what is agreed is the problem. We will touch on that as well. Somebody saying, what stops you from speaking out? Must Raila speak for you to know there is corruption? I'm quite sure Collins Amondi is talking about what we're talking about, that the corruption, there haven't been quite some oversight when it comes to government. As we wind up, last one.
I think, you know, once you do something and you do it continuously and faithfully, people take you as the ambassador. It is a role you are given by people, not necessarily the constitution. When you stop doing that role because of a certain action, then people will doubt whether you are truly doing it for them or you are doing it for you. So the reason I'm saying here that the handshake killed democracy and the way that we used to see the former premier fight for the common mwananchi is because he used to do it until the handshake. So you cannot now run away and say it is not his role, it is the parliament's role to oversight. We know it was. Even those days when, yes, even when he was doing that, it was a parliament's role to oversight. And I can assure you, Ben, you cannot do an exam and mark it for yourself. Okay. You cannot. And that's the reason why we have elections. If we cannot have elections and have the loser and the winner, and the loser continues also to have his checks and all that, then we are not in a good democracy. Okay. So in terms of politicking, I say here again, across the world, the only thing that maybe my friend here is critiquing is having a very vocal politics, but the politics never stops. Even when you are doing...
But ours are quite vocal, if you ask me, and IBC has said that, of course, they are supposed to give the green light next year. I think it's from March.
But if you remember, towards 2013 elections, when we had cases of our president, whom we love and we voted for, when we had those cases because of the post-elections and all that, the campaigns started so early. 3 years before the election year, people were campaigning and nobody was complaining. Okay. Yeah, and they were campaigning the same people that you are today telling them not to campaign, and those days they were campaigning. I don't know what has changed. Okay. Yeah.
So we should actually get good.
The only thing that I would advise the people who are doing politics, they should not divide Kenya. They should do politics full of peace. They should bring Kenya together, and I'm happy so far because I have seen Ruto in Nyanza, and the people came to listen. I have seen the former premier in Mountain Legion, and we received him. People actually went and listened to him. I think we should encourage such politics, that never again will we fight as a country into tribal clashes because of politics. Laila and Ruto will come and then go, but Kenya, we are here until Jesus comes again. So we should protect what we have. We should preach peace and encourage our politicians. As much as we are doing politics before the time, we should not again increase that that should divide our people.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. I can see RPF members tuned in, talking about Keneni, Jamin, Jimia, Mushiri, Mutitu. You say great discussion there. Thank you so much indeed, and that's where we put a cap on matters politics for now. But don't go away. We will be right back with more details. We'll be just touching or checking the political sphere in the country. I have been with Wilson Ngugi Diego, who is a politician and also a political analyst and governance expert. And we also were with, of course, Ken Amondi, who is an advocate of the High Court and also a political analyst. Gentlemen, thank you indeed so much for keeping me company and for your lively discussion. We should do this again very, very soon. Thank you so much. We're taking a quick break. We'll be right back.